welcome to the Education module, Navigating HEAR Post-Approval, Phase 2, Labeling and Shipping Samples. As reviewed in the Post-Approval Overview, there are 4 main phases of the post-approval process. In this module, we will dig into the details of the second phase, which includes sample preparation, labeling, and shipment. This phase occurs after all clearance activities have been completed. The objectives for today are as follows. You will develop an understanding of the steps involved in properly labeling your samples and how to link your SIDs and PIDs. Secondly, you will be aware of critical activities and deadlines along the way, including how and when to ship samples. Finally, you will understand how to obtain access to guidance and tools for successfully navigating the post-approval process. Let's get started. Upon completion of the clearance activities, your project will be cleared for initiation. This entire stage is about 8 weeks long, from the point that clearance activities are completed, which is 16 weeks post-approval, to the deadline for sample shipment at 24 weeks post-approval. We will be referring back to this flowchart as we work through this module. As soon as all clearance activities are complete and the data center approves your epidemiological data, which is the last step of the clearance activities process, the Coordinating Center will schedule a conference call with you to discuss the requirements for aliquoting or other sample subdivision processes, such as sieving, relabeling, and shipping samples. The Coordinating Center will print and send sample labels to you prior to the call. Please note, it is important to have the sample labeling call as soon as possible to facilitate the timely completion of subsequent steps. Please be prompt in your replies to communications from the HEAR team. It is also a good idea to review your lab analysis plans, which can be found on your MyHEAR dashboard, so that the details of the plan are fresh in your mind for the call and the following steps. After receiving the necessary shipment information and participating in the sample labeling call, the Lab Hub will send a request to label, pack, and ship samples. You will then label your samples. You will use the Data Center portal to label samples and link the specimen IDs or SIDs to the PIDs as well as the original specimen IDs. Each of these steps will be discussed more in following slides. You will also need to print a shipping manifest. This is generated by the Data Center portal. Once these steps are complete, you will pack and send the samples to the Lab Hub. When preparing to ship, you will need to retrieve your samples. If your study samples are not on hand, you will need to retrieve those from storage at this point. Some studies will require aliquots to be made from the current specimens. This will be detailed in your lab analysis plan. If there is any deviation in the available samples relative to the approved plan, i.e. a reduction in the number of samples, contact the HEAR Coordinating Center at HEAR_CC@westat.com right away. Please note the tip at the bottom of the slide. Remember, you will need to relabel your specimens with HEAR-specific labels unless a waiver has been completed, which can be found on hearprogram.org and is linked in this slide. Remember, all links provided in this and all other HEAR education modules are available as active links in the slides on the HEAR website. HEAR often recommends that investigators add duplicate samples, also known as technical replicates or split samples, into HEAR project sample sets before shipping to HEAR lab hubs. The number of duplicate samples included in the sample sets will depend on the project size. HEAR investigators should aim for 5% or 20 samples as a maximum. The number of duplicates will be specified in your lab analysis plan. Duplicate samples should have their identity masked, i.e., use containers or vials and sample labeling similar to the HEAR study sample set. Once the samples are available and aliquoted as needed, you will begin the labeling and linking process. As previously mentioned, you will need to relabel samples with sample ID labels from the Coordinating Center. SID labels are printed on Freezer Bond's thermal transfer labels, which are 1 inch by 1/2 inch. These can be applied to frozen vials. Samples must be relabeled unless a waiver has been completed and approved. The waiver can be found on the HEAR website, and a direct link is provided on this slide. You will link the SIDs to the PIDs as well as the original participant IDs in the document provided by the data center. It is recommended that you do this while applying new labels. The HEAR SID labels contain data matrix barcodes. Barcode scanners can be borrowed from the data center if needed. Please note the tip at the bottom of the slide. It contains a link for the sample labeling protocol video. This is a useful tool to review as you near this part of the process. Once the labeling and linking is complete, you will need to print a shipping manifest. The shipping manifest needed for the sample shipment is generated within the data center portal as you link the SIDs to the PIDs and to the original specimen IDs. The manifest is a fully editable Excel file that is accessible under the Generated Files section of your project details screen in the data center portal. When you are ready to ship, you will need to fill in any necessary fields, such as tracking information and box position of each file. As a point of caution, please be aware that your shipping manifest must be approved by the data center before samples can be shipped to the lab hub. This process can also be found within the sample labeling protocol video, which is again linked at the bottom of this screen for your convenience. Also, please note that a hard copy of the manifest should be printed and included in the shipping container and sent electronically to the lab hub. Once SID-PID mapping is complete and the shipping manifest has been approved, the PI will coordinate a shipment date with the lab hub. Again, do not ship your samples before coordinating with the lab hub. All sample shipping activities must be complete, and samples must be shipped within 8 weeks of the approval of your epidemiological data. This is 24 weeks post-approval. You are responsible for all costs incurred to retrieve, process, and ship samples to the lab hub. Because they are so important, we would like to reiterate a couple of key tips. First, a hard copy of the shipping manifest should be printed and included in the shipping container and sent electronically to the lab hub. Second, do not ship until the manifest is approved by the data center and you have coordinated a shipment date and received specific instruction from the lab hub or hubs. Once the samples have shipped, please email the lab hub and coordinating center to let them know the samples have been shipped. Include a copy of the completed manifest as an attachment to this email. Just as a reminder, here are a few tips for this section. Please see the video tutorial for additional labeling instructions, linked in this slide. Discuss best shipping practices for your specimen type with the lab hub. We encourage you to utilize tracking for all sample shipments, and be sure to monitor the shipping progress to ensure delays do not occur in transit. Reach out to the HEAR Coordinating Center at HEAR_CC@westat.com if you have any difficulties during the shipping process. Additionally, samples must be relabeled with HEAR labels. The sample labeling protocol can be found at the link seen here. SIDs and PIDs must be linked within the document provided by the data center. Samples must be shipped within 8 weeks of data approval. And again, if you have questions, please contact the HEAR Coordinating Center at HEAR_CC@westat.com. As a reminder, there is additional information available on the HEAR website, such as policies, support documents, and FAQs, as well as links to data center resources and the sample labeling protocol video, each of which is also linked in this slide. Good luck, and remember, we are here to help.